Hi, and thank you for joining me. In this session, I want to show you how MEMI fits in with memory reconsolidation, prediction error, and the work of Lisa Feldman Barrett, who's a neuroscientist who specializes in how memory and, more importantly, emotions are created. And I want to give you a simple way to understand why MEMI works so well and how it connects to modern neuroscience. But first, a little bit about me. My name's Barry Neale, and I'm a memory trainer in the UK. I've also been an NLP trainer for the last 30 years and also a hypnosis trainer for a similar amount of time. And I've been studying hypnosis for about 50 years. Now, all of my life, I've been on the search for the best methods to help people create lasting change in their lives. And not only have I studied NLP, and hypnosis, but I've also trained in EMDR, brain spotting, and many other therapies. So I have a lot of experience with eye movement therapies. Um, Now, I know for some, when they first come across something like EMDR, it seems incredible, especially if you have a background in talk therapies or counseling. But for me, I was somewhat underwhelmed when I encountered EMDR. I'd already be using variations of bilateral stimulation, and quite frankly, I was surprised at how basic the process was and how often um, it resulted in it being hard on the client, often with them abreacting in some way, shape, or form. Now, this was doubly true when it came to brain spotting. For those of you who don't know, brain spotting can be very hard on the client. And it's very much like exposure therapy in that the client holds this brain spot for a length of time and often abreacts. And it was not for me. And then finally, I came across MEMI several years ago, and it was like a godsend. It was like just a revelation for me because it combined eye movements and integrated it so well with my understanding of NLP and hypnosis. And immediately, it became my go-to treatment of choice for not just trauma, but for many other things as well. So I was really, really thoroughly taken with MEMI. But let's start with a basic idea. For many years, we have treated memory as if it was a file, and you opened it, you read it, and you close it. Um, and many people, particularly if you come from a hypnotherapy background, used to think that the memories were kind of like video recorders, that every time you watched the video, it was the same video. But this model never really explained rapid change in therapy. If that was the case, how did people change? It never explained why a memory can feel powerful one day and distant the next. But the modern view is very, very different. Memory is built each time you recall it. Ernest Rossi, for those of you who studied Ericksonian hypnotherapy, Ernest Rossi once said that every memory access is a reframe. In other words, every time you think about it, you are reframing it in some way, shape, or form. And what is happening is the brain reconstructs it in the moment. And so what happens is when you recall something from your past, it comes from long-term memory into short-term memory. And in that moment, the memory is then active. Protein synthesis starts to occur in the brain. And there's a short window where the brain can update it. This process is called reconsolidation. And it's one of the most important discoveries in emotional learning. Now, this is really important. When I became aware of this, probably about 10, 15 years ago, it really revolutionized the way I thought about therapy. Now, so I really recommend that you look into this. Now, reconsolidation has three specific conditions. Number one, you must activate a specific emotional learning. Now, you must associate the client to the problem briefly to activate the neurology. And for those of you who've studied hypnosis, this is one of the things I have a bit of a bugbear about with um, the people who do script-based hypnosis, and they use a progressive muscle relaxation type induction, which is relaxes the client, which is great. But then they just read them the script. And what this first stage is not happening then because they've not activated the specific emotional learning. And this is key. You have to activate that in the neurology. Then you must create a mismatch or a prediction error. So that's step two. You must create a mismatch or prediction error. Now, what is a prediction error? Basically, it's where there's a complete mismatch between what the brain expects to happen and what actually does happen. And so there's a mismatch or a prediction error. The brain is predicting this is going to happen and it doesn't happen. Then step three is you must repeat that mismatch while the person is safe enough to stay engaged. And if all three are present, the brain rewrites the lesson that memory carried. It completely rewrites it. So the prediction error is the engine that drives this. And from my perspective, prediction error is the engine that drives change. It explains why therapy works. The brain constantly predicts what will happen next, and it uses past experience to guess what is coming and what the body needs to do. So let me give you an example. Imagine a situation and go back 100,000 years, and you've got a guy, a caveman, living in his cave, and he wakes up in the morning and he's rather thirsty. He goes, I'm really thirsty. I need to get some water so I can make a cup of coffee. So he thinks to himself, where do I get water from? So he accesses his memory and he thinks, oh, I know, there's the creek down at the bottom of the hill. I'll go down there. So now he's had a memory and a prediction. If he goes down there, he will be safe. So he goes down the hill and finds the creek, gets some water, comes back up, makes a cup of coffee. Everything is perfect. The prediction and the memory have matched. The memory said, go down there, you'll be safe. And sure enough, he was. And this goes on every single day. Then one particular day, he wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm really thirsty. Where do I get the water from? He accesses his memory and he thinks, oh, I know, down by the creek, down there. So this day he walks down there, goes to the creek. All of a sudden, there's a saber-toothed tiger down there. Ah, big mismatch. Suddenly he's feeling fear and emotion. He runs back up to his cave, slams a rock against the door, and now he sits there quaking in his boots. But you see, the thing is, there's been a prediction error. The memory predicted that if he went down there, he would be safe. He wasn't. So there's a massive prediction error at that point. And so the brain has to update that memory. Otherwise, tomorrow he's going to go and make the same mistake again. Now, you've all had situations like this. I know you have. I am convinced that at some point in your life, you've met someone who you thought was absolutely wonderful, a really wonderful person. You may have even got into a relationship with that person, right? But then something happened. You found out some new information. And at that moment, it completely changed the way you thought about that person. And you never thought about them in the same way again. The prediction had changed. And so that moment, it had created lasting change. So the brain is making its best guess about what's going to happen. And when the guess is wrong and the evidence contradicts it, the brain must update. And this is how learning takes change at the deepest level. So this brings us to the neuroscientist, Lisa Feldman Barrett. Now, if you haven't heard about her, I highly recommend that you Google her, and she's got several books on how emotions are created. She shows that the brain itself does not react to the outside world. And this is huge. This is absolutely huge. The brain does not react to the outside world. It predicts it. So emotion is a construction built from prediction. The brain takes past experience, the current context, and the body's internal signals, and it makes its best guess as to what's going to happen next. So, anxiety or panic is not the event, it's the brain's forecast of what the event means. Now, this is really important because so many of our clients, they will tell you that it's something outside in the outside world that's the problem. For the person who's got a fear of flying, or it's the plane that's making me scared, or it's the spider that's making me scared, or it's giving a presentation that's making me scared. It's none of those things. That's the illusion. The brain is just making a prediction of what it thinks is going to happen. Because here's the thing, for as many people who are scared of flying, there are people who love flying. For as many people who are scared of spiders, there are people out there keeping spiders as pets, right? For as many people who are scared of public speaking, there are some people like myself who love it. So it can't be that thing. It's the brain's prediction. And so this is really key. And even if we can just get our clients to understand that it's not the outside thing that's the world, it's their thinking that is the issue, then this can get us so much further down the road. And this is the same with traumatic memories. People think it's the traumatic memory that's making me feel bad. But trauma is not just an old memory. Trauma is a prediction habit. The brain keeps forecasting danger now based on danger then. And it fires the old prediction, even in safe moments. So old learning keeps shaping present experience. MEMI fits this science really well. And this is why I love it. In fact, it gives us a structured way to deliver reconsolidation and prediction error across multiple channels of experience. And this is just one of its key strengths because it works visually, cognitively, emotionally, interoceptively, and relationally. It targets the whole prediction package that the brain uses. So let me walk you through MEMI and show you how each step fits in with the neuroscience, because this is really, really good. If you understand this, you understand what the steps mean and why it's so important. Now, obviously, we begin by orienting the client to the present. So if the client comes into your office, we bring their attention to the room, the chair, the floor, and their breath. We do that routine where we get them to breathe and to really be present in the room and that moment and to make sure that they are grounded. And obviously sometimes we can give them things to hold to get them grounded as well. This is not a warm-up. This is an active ingredient. It gives us a strong sense of now, gives the client a strong sense of now. Then later, when the old memory lights up, we want the contrast with the present to be clear. That contrast is what creates the prediction error. Then we elicit a resource anchor. Now, this is a really powerful step because we're associating them to a resource that is the polar opposite of the present state. This is really important because then we're going to use that to create a massive prediction error. Firing this anchor during the process creates a massive prediction error. The brain is expecting one thing and suddenly they're feeling something else. The brain is expecting to feel bad, but for some reason, they're feeling resourceful. The brain has to update this new information into the memory. Then we have them think about the target memory and we look at the image and we get all the submodalities of the image and we rate those on the I scale. Then we go for the sounds or the words. And again, we get the submodalities. Now, curious thing, when they're doing this, to actually think about that experience, the visual qualities, the sound and the sound qualities, they have to go meta to the event. In other words, they have to think about it. That's a prediction error as well. They've never done that before. Then we want them to look at the body sensations. Again, they're going meta to them. Then we want them the emotions and the feelings, and we rate those. Every time they do that, again, they're going meta to that experience. Again, that's creating a prediction error. And we then want the beliefs or the impulses that they learned at that time. Now, this activates the specific network that reconsolidation research depends on. Now, just general chit chat doesn't do this. We need the precise emotional learning that formed the prediction. Then we create dissociation, therapeutic dissociation, and we have them take that pain and put it way over there, and so they can see it over there. Now, creating therapeutic dissociation is a powerful prediction error because the client will immediately feel a change in the intensity of the feelings and get some distance from the memory. This in itself, just this one maneuver, can create massive change because people just don't do this normally. So this is really, really important. The moment they can step out of it and dissociate, huge, huge change in the way they think about that memory. And as a result, there's a prediction error. I'm thinking of the memory, I'm not feeling as bad. So that's really important. They will feel a change just from the dissociation. Then, of course, we move to the eye movements. Now, this stage is doing several things at once. Now, obviously, when we're accessing these different quadrants, we're accessing different parts of the mind, and it's done in a specific way for a specific reason. But just merely tracking the hand whilst thinking of that particular thing uses working memory. So the image loses some of its power. And the eye movements themselves activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest phase. And I'm sure many of you have noticed that when you work with clients at the end of the session, they go, oh, I feel so relaxed now, I feel so tired. That's the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. And again, this is a massive prediction error because that would not normally happen like that. And then we've got the changes and doing the triangles and the figure of eights. Rapid directional shifts also force flexible attention. And then the present time sensory input contradicts the memory-driven sense of danger. The brain holds the old scene active while receiving new evidence of safety. And this is really important. This creates this complete prediction error in a very clean and embodied way. Then we keep inviting the client to notice the difference between then and now, between the sets. Because between the eye movement sets, we're grounding them and we're having them rate the eye scale. And again, in order to do that, they have to go meta to the experience again. They have to think about how they think about it. And again, more memory reconsolidation is taking place because, again, the brain is expecting danger, but instead it finds control, choice, movement, change of voice tone, and connection. The system must update. Each pass through the memory increases the mismatch on each set. This mismatch is not a side effect. It's the therapeutic effect. And as the process unfolds, meaning changes on its own. So we don't have to do reframes on the particular belief or language. The meaning changes on its own. And clients, you probably hear this, you've probably had this experience many, many times. Clients begin to say things like, it feels further away, or I know it happened, but it no longer feels like it's happening now. It just seems like a memory. This is the sign that the brain is building a new concept for the event. And Lisa Feldman Barrett would say it has created a new emotional category, the same memory, but a different concept and a different prediction attached to it. In MEMI, we also invite new interpretations and new future templates. And this future pacing is really important because when we take them out now into the future to situations where in the past they would have responded in the old way, again, the brain is predicting if that happens, I'm going to freak out. But now they're imagining it and nothing. They feel fine, they feel resourceful. So this helps the brain rehearse a new behavior, a new model before the person faces real life triggers. And it strengthens then the prediction. So it makes it even more profound. The old danger, it forecasts a loss of confidence. This new safe forecast gains confidence. This is not erasing the past. This is updating what the past means for today. So let me give you an example from my own practice. I worked with a client a short while ago, and they were hit by a car at a junction. And even years later, every time she approached that junction, her brain predicted, "You're about to get hit again," and her heart rate rose up, her muscles tightened, her body acted as if the event was all happening again. So we began with the grounding. Obviously went through the process and filled out all the forms. Then we activated the moment of impact and all the channels around it. And then during the MEMI sequence, she followed the movements and kept the scene active. And at first, her body fired the old reflex. But I pulled her back to the anchoring, and suddenly she's more resourceful. And then after a few sets, she started to notice a big difference between the past and the present. She could see what was happening now, the changes in the way that she thought. And she felt more resourceful just sitting there in the room. And she could sense her adult strength. Her breathing settled. Her interpretation changed from, "I'm going to die," to, "It's over." That's the shift in prediction. Her brain updated its model. She no longer reacted as if the danger was happening now. This is reconsolidation in action. Old learning active, new evidence introduced, prediction updated, memory then saved back in a less threatening form. And so this is the power of memory reconsolidation in action. And I highly recommend that you look at this whole idea of memory reconsolidation and prediction error because it really, really explains what we do. When we understand it, we get a so much greater understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it and what to do when. And MEMI uses deliberate mismatch across multiple sensory channels. And this is what makes it so much more powerful than EMDR. Yes, they're using eye movements, but the delivery is completely different. It's so different. This what makes MEMI a powerful tool because we are feeding prediction error through vision, through sound, through their body sense, their posture, and everything. It's literally the multi-channels. So why does all this matter to us practitioners? Because it gives us a clear and modern explanation for the outcomes we see. It shows why clients often feel a real change in a single session. And it also explains why change lasts. And I think that's really important. And so when we're talking to professionals, we can come up with an explanation about how memory works based on neuroscience. This is really important. And we're not just saying, "Oh, well, it just works through blah, blah, blah." We know how it works. It explains why change lasts. And it places MEMI within the most current science of emotional learning. What MEMI really does is it updates the brain's map of danger and safety. It helps the system stop firing false alarms. It teaches the body that reminders of the past do not mean a threat now. And it gives the client a sense of choice and control that they may not have felt in a long, long time. And so, to close, here's the idea that guides everything in this talk. So, trauma is old learning, but learning can be updated. MEMI gives us a way to bring that learning into the present, introduce the right kind of surprise, and let the brain rewrite its prediction for the future. So, thank you for listening. I hope this gives you a clear and practical way to link MEMI with reconsolidation and the predictive brain. So thank you for listening.